My name is Dale Moore. We started attending Brentwood in 1978. We joined in 1982. Been here ever since, and I have married to Leanne and I have 2 children. Hunter is almost 14 and Shelby is almost 11. Some of the fun things I remember, of course, children's choir with Miss Mildred. We were all in there. I mean, me and Neil, Hoppy, Craig Reed, Todd Warren, Scott Holmes, everybody came to children's choir. So that was one of my first memories of BBC. And then as we got into youth group, gosh, I think I went on every retreat, mission trip from 7th grade through 12th grade, and just hanging out with those guys, and guys that I met in 3rd grade, I'm still in contact with today. So that's a cool thing.
Do you remember the locations of some of those retreats that you went to?
Oh gosh, yeah, we went to a lot. We went to a lot of retreats in, what's the name of the place? White Bluff. Went to a lot of retreats, and a couple of times at Jonathan Creek in Hardin, Kentucky. I think they still go there. So yeah, we've kind of been all over the place retreat-wise. Yeah. I was in the 4th grade, and my 4th grade teacher was Claude Bryant. And funny thing, Claude actually taught my mom at Woodbine in Sunday school, and so I think he had a special place that he was. I was going to make a decision one way or the other that year, and I just remember a lot of conversations with him because he knew my mom and he knew my dad, and about family, about where I was as an 8-year-old. But yeah, I mean, he's the one who really said, you got to make a decision about this thing sooner or later. And during a revival that we had, one of those old time, hellfire and brimstone. But yeah, it was just one of those things that it took me about a year from the time that we started talking, that Claude and I started talking, until I came to that profession of faith. It's about a year. And I know there's a lot of prayers on his side. And he and my parents would talk, and yeah, so it was, I was about 8, I think, 4th grade. Yeah, what makes a campus successful, and this has always been the Brentwood key, I think, has always been generational worship. When I was 8, Claude Bryant speaking into my life. When I was, in youth group, David Minch, Danny Poole, Wayne Baldwin, gosh, even older people that have gone on, Jay Austin, Trev Brown, people who were in youth group with me but who were ahead of me on the same road, reaching back to the kids that are younger behind them. And then when I got into a young adult, and I was in college, Bill Lovell, Maurice Painter, people who have reached back and who have seen that to make a campus and make a church successful, you've always got to be reaching back to the next generation. And so that's what we try to do now at Station Hill, is the same type of thing that we learned here in their DNA. It's just we've got to continually reach back to the younger generation to bring them along. It all starts with your foundation. You've got to know what you know. I mean, if you don't, you've got to start with those basic things. And it started when I was 5 at Brentwood, and just teachers, and it may sound simplistic, but reading memory verses and reciting those, and singing songs that are bathed in worship, in choir, that and now it's continuing, because we do the same thing at our church, and now everything's got to be foundational. I mean, we've got to, especially now in this generation, the kids that are growing up now, I see so many kids that, it's whatever. They don't have any foundation. They have no semblance of what's right and wrong. So they've got to have those foundations. You've got to have something to stand for. And, but it all started with me when I was 5. Yeah. I had grown up in that church. I've been there since I was 5. And, I was newly married. We got married in '99. We moved here in 2002. So we were just getting started. Now I was fairly upset, but I remember having a conversation with Mike away from just, we ran into each other, I think, at the Y. And I asked him, why we got to move? And he said, it doesn't really matter where we are. And it's the first time I ever heard him say this was not at the pulpit. He said, church is not a building. The church is the people. And we're the same people, whether we're at 409 or whether we're at 77. And at that point, I was like, okay, I think, Mike had been there a couple of years at that point, and we were like, I think we can trust this guy. But yeah, it was, I was concerned because it was taking me out of my comfort zone. I knew where every door it led at 409. I knew where everything was. And if somebody came in and asked me where something was, I could tell you exactly where the broom closet was in the second floor. But coming here, I think the concern was that we, in our bigness, would lose what had made Brentwood so unique. But what we found out as we were newly married and we're in a class, that we became intentional about making sure that our connections grew smaller so we could grow deeper. Our first couple of years of marriage, we were involved with a young married class with Gene and Lynn Tortai, and that was some of the most foundational things for our marriage, because we were trying to figure out, how do we not fight all the time? How do we, not have these ridiculously huge fights over stupid things, So we learned a lot in that class, and everybody in that class was in the same spot. So we were all fairly new. None of us had kids yet. But now, those people that were in that class basically was the launch team for Station Hill. Yeah, so depending on when it is in the calendar year, I'm 6 years older than Leanne. Sometimes maybe 7. Like I said, I've known her family her entire life. We started dating. I was 23, she was 17. I was actually a leader in youth group when she was attending the same youth group. I remember multiple meetings between myself and Jay Austin and Wayne and my mom and dad trying to determine if this was a thing that they could allow. But I think what it all came back to was the fact that we had known each other so long that it was one of those relationships that everybody just kind of knew this thing is not a typical relationship. So there's so much history there that it probably is going to work. So I think that's one of the things that everybody was okay about, because I'm not really sure if my 17-year-old daughter came and said, I want to date somebody who's 23, that I would be like, okay. Where do I see BBC going? Well, generally, just broadly, Mike's already cast the vision. It's 100 campuses. Whether that means that they're all going to be regional campuses or restarts or whatever, that's yet to be seen. But we do a lot of, in my business, projection. Where is it going to go next? I think we do a lot. We just started Nolensville. I would anticipate that it moves that way. Smyrna, Murfreesboro, maybe west to Bellevue too. Those are the next big areas probably. But yeah, it doesn't really matter the direction of where we actually put a campus. What matters is that we are faithful in doing what the Lord's called us to do. And we've all decided this is the direction we're going. We're going to have this amount of campuses by a certain date. And I see no reason why, if we've been diligent in what we've done this far, that the Lord won't bless that. So, longevity, faithfulness, and servant. I've been here since I was 5, and I'm 45, so that's 40 years of being involved with Brentwood campuses. Funny thing, before I joined Brentwood, I was actually, the first 5 years of my life, I went to Woodbine, which is now a regional campus. So it's kind of funny how that comes around. But, you know, so I've been involved with Brentwood for 40 years, and that's a long, long time to be at one place. And yeah, I don't think you find that a lot in the United States today. A lot of people that have been 40 years. I mean, I just never wanted to leave, because what I got here, I couldn't get anywhere else. I went to Belmont. I went with people, visited with the other churches when I was in college, and it was like, it's not the same. It's not Brentwood. Brentwood's a special place. It's just, I don't know how else to explain it, but that when you walk in here, and it's always been this way, even when Bill was here, you knew this was where the Lord was. You knew this is where things were happening for the kingdom. It's always been a very servant-minded church. It's always been concerned about missions and worship. Those are two of our huge, big stepping stones, you know. And we've always done that, and we've always put those two things first. So those, you know, that's what it means to me. I've been thinking a lot about this lately, simply because I have an almost 14-year-old son who has expressed an interest that he needs some male mentorship in his life. And it's tough, because I do feel that that's my responsibility, but at the same time, there has to be some things that he learns away from me. So I'm trying to decide to come to right now of how best to mentor him, not only in life but in spiritual things, because that's really the things that matter. So I know that I'm prepared, and that is because of Brentwood. But it's the thing of, you know, you're still trying to figure out how best to reach this 14-year-old kid who's an amazing kid, who's going to do great things in his life, but is still my son, and how do I reach him as a father and as a mentor? So that's where we're struggling now, is just trying to figure out what's the best way to do that. Is that he and I sitting down just a couple of times a week? Is it he and I and a couple of friends sitting down? And because he's on the football team and he's on track team, and there are a bunch of those kids that have no clue who the Lord is. And so both of us are trying to flesh out what that is, because I feel like there's a huge opportunity there for us, for he and I, not only to grow as father and son, but also develop this thing of where there's where there's a need, there's not anything available to those children. So we're trying to figure that out. And honestly, days I do a pretty bad job of figuring out, because I am a human, but you know, I don't do as well as I should at times. My biggest thing, and I think I've said this before, is just I just never wanted to go anywhere else. I mean, I always was being fed spiritually, emotionally, everything that I needed from a church. Brentwood provided for me. They provided me opportunity. If I wanted to go on a mission trip, I could go on a mission trip. They provided me, you know, if I wanted to get more involved in whatever ministry that's available. So for me, it has been a place that I just never wanted to leave. So that was the hardest thing when we transitioned, was making sure that Station Hill had those same opportunities as Brentwood. And I think we've done a pretty good job in that. But Brentwood is special. This is a special place. It's not, I liken it to the fact that when I went to Belmont, I felt the same specialness. There was a specialness in that campus when I was there at the time, that it was similar. You knew something was going on. This has always been that way. Brentwood has always been special. It's never been like any other church in the area. And that's just, you know, it speaks to the leadership that's involved here that has made it special. It also speaks to the people, though. That's what really has made it special, because these people here, I mean, I've had people that have impacted my life for 40 years. And they're still impacting my life.